Okay, welcome back. In the last video, we looked on getting some basic data capture going in terms of requesting a first name and a last name and presenting the user back with the information that they typed in. Okay, now what we're going to try and introduce is the data capture in terms of number processing. Okay, so what do I mean by that? The computer understands what a string is and it understands what numbers is, and those are separate things. Now there's details ways we could talk about this in a more advanced way, but this video has been aimed at mainly at kids who want to kind of learn programming, right? And so sometimes you want to be able to work with numbers. So let's see if we can get a few variables going that can actually deal with numbers. So let's go ahead and introduce, we're going to put age. So age here as what we'll call an int. Now, an int here is an integer, right? It just means that it can capture whole numbers like one, two, three, 1,000, a million, so on and so forth, as new numbers, not as text, but as numbers, right? So I'm just going to declare that and I'm going to give it a default value of 0, okay? And so what we're going to go ahead and try and do now is firstly we're going to capture the value as a string. So, and there's a reason why I'm doing it this way. So I'm going to go ahead and say age string, right? Now, because remember, what's going to come back from this is a string. So if you hover over it here, it says string console read line. So to, to assign an integer or a numeric value as a string or a string as an there is a special degree of syntax that needs to go in, and I'll explain what that is as we're going along, right? So I'll be able to get, sorry, I'll be able to get that value and house it in that specific variable. So the next thing I want to do, we're going to introduce you to the concept of logic. Logic would be something like if this, then do that. Okay. So the high level principle that I'm going to go and have here is, now notice it's actually trying to, the artificial intelligence thinks that this gray line of is what I'm trying to do. That's not what I'm trying to do, but it's trying to be helpful, right? So the next thing I want to do here is I'm going to say if that string, that age string, type it correctly, is not string empty. Now, I've got here string empty. I could have just simply typed something like this, right? And all I'm doing is simply saying if that string has a value, because I could just press enter, right? And so I don't just want to print out an empty string. So I want to make sure that I have that value, right? So the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, right, I now want to assign the age, the value init parse. All of that was the artificial intelligence. I didn't type all that. I just pressed the tab to accept what the artificial intelligence was telling me, right? And so what we've got here now is I'm saying use the integer function, and the function is like a bit of processing with logic that we don't have to care about. We're just saying take that and request this information from it, being the string, right? So if that is functional, i.e., if we've captured a numeric value, this will work. If we haven't captured a numeric value, that might present us some additional issues that we have to fix. And this is what programmers do. We try and understand what the user is going to do in the future when we're not sitting beside them, and put the relevant logic in the code to deal with strange scenarios. Now, I know that means maybe nothing to you right now. Let's work through it and I'll explain as we go. All right, so I'm saying take that value as that age, and then the next thing I'm going to say is if age is not 0. Now this condition here with this exclamation and equal, I'm saying not equal, right? So again, as you learn more, this will become more relevant, right? So if it's not 0, then at that point we want to then print out the information. So let's go ahead and see if we can put some text in to make that make sense. Okay, so we're asking the question, and then we then request that the user enters a value, and then we're saying if the value is not empty, right? Not an empty string, then assume that the user has typed a number and get that number, right? And then once we have the age, we then present the user with that value. So it's a number, and so we have to be careful with that. And so I'm going to say, are you sure you are? And then we're going to do something a bit funky here. We're doing a bit of formatting, right? And so I'm now going to say age. Now I could be, a bit smart and just say, okay, fine, I have the age as a string already, and then so we'll test it out as that first, and then we'll try it a different way after in a second, okay? So let's just quickly review what we've got here that's new. So already we know about the data capture by requesting the first name and the last name. They can enter anything, right? We're just asking them for information. And then we represent them with what the first name and last name that has been entered. And the next thing we do here is we ask the question, how old are you? And then we capture that information. And providing that they actually have given us good information, then we represent them with, are you sure? This is it. You are. And then we present that information on the screen, and then we finish processing. So let's see if we can go ahead and start that. So I'm just going to click the start button. Okay, so what is your first name? And I'll just put Bob Davis. Your name is Bob Davis. Excellent. How old are you? And I'm going to say 100. Formatting could be a bit better. Press enter. And then it presents me with, are you sure you are 100? Right? And so that's the execution of the program as it stands here now. So we have a couple of things to fix. But this 100 should be up here. So that means that I did a write line, and that's why it wrote out all that line information there. So let's see if we can find that. Write line. So that should just be a write. Okay. Now again, this is just basic programming. This is basic introduction. There's a lot more sophisticated ways that we can do this, and as we progress with the series, we'll be detailing how we tackle these things in a bit more sophisticated fashion. Okay, so let's play that again, and we'll say Mark Brown. How old are you? So there it is on one line, and I'll change the value to 500. And it says, are you sure you are 500? So what have we done so far? We've captured the age, but what if the user doesn't put an age value in, right? It means then that we've already set the age to 0, and we're saying if the age is not equal to 0, again, the exclamation mark and the equal means not equal. So say not equal, and then that's the only time that we'll get that question, right? So let's go ahead and see what happens when that happens there. So for that scenario, so Mark Brown, enter, and then we don't enter a value here. In that instance, it does not present the user with their age to say, are you sure? It doesn't ask that question. So at the beginning, we started off setting breakpoints, and I want to do that again with you now before we close out this video, because we're roughly at the 10-minute marker. So let's go ahead and stop the video there. Stop the program there now. My apologies. Okay, so we're going to set a breakpoint at places that we want to see a variable. So I want to see a variable here. I want to see the last name here. And I should capture the age at this point. And so it'll be interesting to see the flow of the logic, right? So again, all the breakpoint does is stop the processing so we can inspect what's in memory. So I'm going to go ahead and press start. And I'm going to say mark and press enter. And the breakpoint kicks in. So now I can hover over the first name and I can see there's the name right there, and I can right click on it. And there are a couple of ways that we can inspect this. A matter of fact, no, that's probably a little advanced for this video. We'll just continue for the time being. So we know that the first name is in memory and it's in memory as Mark. I can click on this little icon here and I can keep watching that variable. Another thing we can do is step through the code line by line. So if I press F10, I keep stepping through the code. So now it stopped me from stepping through the code because we're doing a read line to capture the information. So let's go ahead and enter Brown, press enter. And when I press enter there, you saw the breakpoint kicking. So that means I just need to click on the Visual Studio environment to go back from the app. So this is the console. So the console is its own app. It's a separate process. Okay. So now I go back to Visual Studio and press F10 again. So we come down to age. Age is 0. I press F10. And now I want to read in the age. So I'm going to deliberately not enter a value just so you can see what the if logic is doing. So I'm going to press enter, and string is empty. So if I click on that there, it's an empty string, right? So if I press F10 now look on the logic, how it's going to flow. It's going to say if not equal empty, meaning we won't go in here. It skipped over that processing, right? And so the next thing we do here is we say if it's not equal 0, then it should print that. So if I press F10, it won't do that. It just jumped over it, right? And so I can then press F5 to continue processing. And then it comes up with the window automatically. And it doesn't present us with a question to say what your age is. So let's press enter. And now we're going to do the exact same thing. I'll do it quite quickly. So the window did not prompt. So I just press Alt and Tab to find the window and then show it up on the screen. So let's do this quick. Mark. Okay. Breakpoint is there. I can remove the breakpoint. Don't necessarily need to see the first name and last name again. And Brown. I know I might be going just a little bit quickly, but you can always pause the video and go back, right? Okay, so now we're going to be asked for the age. And now we're going to say 75 and press enter. Now we have in memory the age being 75. So it's saying the value has changed because all I did earlier was hover over the variable, and then I put a watcher on that variable because it's a watcher. We're expecting something to change and we want to know what the value is, right? So I can go ahead and put another watcher there. I can also put a watcher on the last name if I wanted to. And so we have the first name, the last name. This is incredibly powerful. You couldn't do things like this, 20, 15 years ago, even, I don't think, right? You could always look at your variables. You've been doing that for about 50 years, but you had to do it in a different way in Visual Studio, right? Okay, so we go ahead, and the next thing we are expecting, because this is not empty, that we will go into this line, right? So I'm going to go ahead and press the F10 button, and there is the age. And the age has now been assigned the value from the function call to parse. And again, you don't have to know what parse is doing. You just need to be able to follow what I'm doing for the time being. And as you become more advanced with the understanding of the libraries that are available for you, all the what we call API calls, application programming interface, don't worry, it's big words, but you get used to it. This is its own universe, programming its own universe, right? And so it's just like you're learning a new language, like speaking language like Spanish or French. It's the same principles. You just get used to hearing these words. So if they sound new to you now, don't be put off. It just, you hear these things every now and then, and they come to you. Okay, so now F10. Now we have a value in age, and again, not equal. So if age is not equal 0, and in this case age is it's even telling us true. It's telling us that the execution of this line here is true. But its age is 75. So again, I'm going to put a watcher on that there, and so we can see all that information. Press F10, and then I'm just going to press F5 now. And so now, are you sure you are 70? Wait. Are you sure you are you? Okay, let's just fix that up. My apologies. Sometimes we haven't done testing yet. I'm still just kind of doing as you're going. Okay, so are you sure you are? And then, right, the first chance to actually read what we've got on the screen there. So that is that bit of logic to be able to capture information. We captured strings, we captured numbers in the form of integers, and we represented the user with that information. And we've got a bit of what we call flow control with the if statement. So there's other ways of actually being able to go through and look at the data, but this is like a very much fundamental early set of concepts to get your head around. If you're 9, 10, as long as you can read and have the ability to type on a computer, get access to Visual Studio, you should be able to slowly become familiar with the environment and the concepts. And then later on, then you can start looking at more advanced projects. Maybe there's a lot of training online on YouTube and different places. You've got paid training as well that's quite structured and allow you to get additional knowledge. But trying to go for that without even knowing the fundamentals in a lot of cases could prove quite complex, quite painful. But understanding the fundamentals will allow you to be able to look and understand and interpret what's being spoken to you without throwing you into the deep end. Right, we're going to stop this video there now and pick things up in the next lesson.